Okay, hello there and welcome to the Drax Files Radio Hour with Jo Yardley. My name is Draxter Dupre. I'm a little bit under the weather. You may hear that from my voice. I'm also contractually obligated to mention Jo Yardley's name, although she has bailed on us again. And you wonder why? Well, the reason is we're not even in Second Life. We're not in Second Life anymore. We're in space, and we've been here before. And the funny thing is that Justin Esparza, who does these wonderful images every week for the Drax Files Radio Hour that kind of sort of summarize the theme of the show. I call them thumbnail, but that's really not giving them credit. I use them as thumbnails, but basically the featured image of each show. He said, hey, I'll see you at the live show in 5 minutes. And he realized we're not in Second Life today. We are in space, and we'll talk about what space is if you're not familiar with space. Again, we've been here before, and today, as you can see, we are in front of a tremendously huge audience of, I think it's about 4 people. I'm joking. We're completely grateful for this very sort of impromptu show that we're putting together, and we will be talking today about, the theme is kind of intellectual property and sort of rights for content creators, some stuff that we talk about a lot on the show, but today we're talking about it maybe in a more holistic way, sort of metaverse, sort of basically applying it to the whole metaverse rather than Second Life only, or maybe VR worlds, because space is a very interesting world that is not really focused on HMDs, and we're going to talk to the makers why that is and what they thought about that. Let me say my lips are currently not moving, as you may be accustomed to from the Second Life panels. That is also due to a very quick job of putting this together, putting my avatar together here. There's actually
I literally brought his avatar in half an hour ago. So I apologize.
Wait, somebody's talking off camera. You weren't on camera, but you are now. And here's Adam Frisbee. Oh. Adam Frisbee, you're somehow involved with this world. You are with the company who makes this world, which is Sinewave Entertainment. Please introduce yourself.
Hi there, I'm Adam Frisbee. I may have been recognized at one point for being one of the founding developers of OpenSim, but these days I am the CEO/CTO of Sinewave Entertainment, which is working on space, the world that we're in today. My goal and my job is pretty much to try and make the best virtual world for content creators out there. So the topic of intellectual property and how that relates to merchants and virtual good sellers and everything like that is really quite close to my heart. We used to run, we still do actually, a big animation store which has a presence in Second Life and IMVU and a few other places, but a few of you guys might recognize us. And we have built space partly in response to a lot of the intellectual property and piracy issues that we really encountered. Our animation sales were really devastated by piracy a couple of years back, which was always a bit of a disappointment. So we actually set up and tried to build a virtual world that is better, that can let creators sort of do what they want and give you sort of great tools to work with, and that is my job.
Mm-hmm. Adam, real quick before we get right away into the nitty-gritty, tell us a little bit more about the feature set, or where space is right now in the ecosystem. What is sort of the basic feature set? What is the selling point? Why is it so interesting? And also tell me about the facial animation feature that unfortunately we couldn't implement in a short time. We had to prepare for this show. And before you answer that, let me invite our YouTube audience right away. You can comment on whatever you hear us discuss, and I'll feed the questions or comments to Adam. Also, if you're watching on YouTube right now, you can hop into space. It's very simple. Go to sign.space, and you can log in there, or you download the desktop client, you hit explore, and then look for Drax Files, and boom, you're in the studio audience. It's really simple. It runs in a browser or in the desktop client. So now, Adam, give me the elevator pitch. What is the amazing thing that is so much better about space than, like, another world that we know, which starts with S and ends with Egg.
Here's the forward pitch. We have no limits. Well, we barely have any limits. The goal of Space is to sort of take all the shackles off content creators. So we don't inhibit your work. A lot of the work that we do in Space is specifically about enabling you to use really good high-quality tools in conjunction with Space. So if you've got someone who knows how to write, for instance, shader programs or anything else that's sort of coming out of a AAA game, you can get that running here in Space. But that's not just it. Space, we're trying to sort of build on top of a lot of the legacy of the previous generations of virtual worlds. So I have been mucking around in virtual worlds since about 1996, when Active Worlds was around. That's when I first joined there. I've got a very old account there. And then I moved over to another project called Blackson, which came out about 2 or 3 years later. And then finally I moved back to Active Worlds and came back over to Second Life in 2003, at the very end of 2003. And I spent a very long time in there, up until about 2007, when I started working on OpenSim. Spent a while in OpenSim, and then quit OpenSim in 2010 to make Space. And Space is really sort of the culmination of where I want a virtual world platform to go. So this is actually the 4th virtual world that I have worked on as sort of an employee/developer. And this one sort of takes in a lot of the lessons that I had learnt beforehand in previous virtual worlds. I'm really trying to build something that takes away a lot of the creative restrictions that exist in other worlds. So in here, you've got the power as a creator to build and do what you want. Everything from our scripting runtimes to our content creation systems are all really optimized towards letting creators do everything. At least everything we can enable them to do, and that's I hope a fairly comprehensive list already. We still do have work to do. I mean, Space is in beta, but every month we're sort of adding new features. In the last 6 months, we've just added body sliders. So we've got sort of character customization at a much greater level now. There's a special client you need to download it for right now, but it'll be going to general release at the end of the month. We've added scripting, which at the very start of the year. We also added our in-world build tools. That's a new thing we launched about 2 months ago. And in the next couple of months, we've got all sorts of new features coming along the way. And we're really hoping that if you're a creator, you're interested in joining us, have a look at our websites. If it looks interesting, come on and say hi. We've got staff and developers everywhere, sitting almost all hours a day to help out new creators get started with their projects. And if you've ever been limited by a virtual world in the past that sort of said that you can't do this, then I hope that Space is what you're looking for.
Well, let me jump in here because, normally people say, I say this a lot. I always say, oh, what can you do in Second Life? And I say, well, you can do pretty much everything. Now, you said, this world has no limits. Can you give me some specific example, just a handful of quick examples where you feel other worlds, maybe specifically Second Life, or even some VR worlds, have limits that you guys don't have?
Well, here's a quick example. I mean, there's all sorts of things we can talk about. Like, for instance, you can apply post effects in Space. So, for instance, this is something we launched fairly recently, about 3 months ago. We did a big overvamp of it. So that's, for instance, you can make the world black and white. You can change the shading to take all the saturation out, or you could add really blown out bloom. That's just sort of one example. So you can take sort of control of the screen in a way that other worlds don't let you to. But at a more fundamental level, there's simple features that we've got that other worlds don't have. For instance, geographical limits. A region in Space is generally pretty reliable up to about 20,000 kilometers, 20,000 meters square. So 20 kilometers square, you can build in a single region in Space, pretty reliable. We've got someone who's modeled a very substantial percentage of the Grand Canyon, actually, which is a really impressive build to look at. But more than that, it's the ability to sort of take things away. So in Space, if you want to swap the sky out with something else, with complete sky, have no water, you could build a space region, and that's in space, that's on an asteroid or something like that. There's sort of no limits to what your environments can look like and what they can do. And that's really sort of where we've gone. We've sort of gone from the ground up. This is the base palette, and then it's easy enough to build on the simple stuff you expect. Like if you want to drop a terrain into the region, then it's pretty straightforward. But if you don't want to do that, then it's something that's possible here.
Now, you mentioned earlier, and by the way, we're not sitting right now because the sitting animations are also a little limited right now, but that's only due to you're doing an amazing job putting this together really quickly. This Dragster studio, it's really amazing, and I'm absolutely hugely grateful for you to work all hours, and I'm also up to. I have a pretty good grasp of the world's time zones, but I'm not sure about the Australian time zones. It's funny because whenever I interact with you, you seem to be responsive. So this is something I cannot say for some other people in other virtual worlds where I know exactly the time zone and they're still not responsive, and I know they're awake. So thank you for that. We have another addition to our small impromptu panel, and this is a name that might be familiar to a lot of people in Second Life. Mel Burns. Mel Burns, can you hear us? And I think you have to press the Alt key to talk.
I don't know. I'm noticing that the keystroke I'm now pressing seems to be animating me too. So I'm crouching down, even if I'm not sitting down. Anyway, yes, thank you, Draxter. Well, I was surprised to be here, or rather last minute. I've been around, I suppose it's about 11, 12 years ago since I joined initially Second Life. And have later moved on to OpenSim, and now I'm building studios here and in High Fidelity, having been based mostly on OpenSim for a few years now. Yes, indeed, this avatar doesn't look like mine, unfortunately. You've done a good job on yours, but...
That's all Melio's work, by the way. That was initially done for VR Chat. I have to give credit to Melio. She started that when I was interviewed on VR Chat last year, and she put this together. I also used this in High Fidelity.
Yeah, I saw you in High Fidelity, and, I thought, oh, look at old Drax, he's the same everywhere. But yes, indeed. Yeah, well, you asked about me. Of course, for those who don't know, I actually host a weekly Meta World News bulletin, and most weeks we also have an open-ended chat show called the In-World Review.
Oops, I'm maneuvering the camera around here. I actually really like the camera controls. The viewers on the... Oh my God, here's Justin Esparza. Just want to give a shout out to... This is a lot of fun. Justin Esparza, as I mentioned earlier, is doing the art for the featured image of the podcast every single week and kind of sort of summarizes what the hour is all about with a variety of sort of a composite image, which I really, really love. And I think I'm going to put that up for sale as a poster or something. Adam, you mentioned earlier, and this is kind of the unofficial topic for the show. You mentioned earlier that you, of course, started in Second Life. You're still selling animations, and you had issues with being copybought and being ripped off. And I thought about this a lot last week, and I just also released a video with Arden Schwartzman, who, and it's not in the video, but he mentions that the copy mod transfer model that we're all very accustomed to in Second Life is actually a brilliant model with all its flaws that has really not been replicated yet, and we're going to talk about high fidelity sensor a little bit later, but I want to hear your opinion on the plus and minus of the copy mod transfer model, and what are you guys doing better to protect theft in virtual worlds with content. And again, I just also want to mention real quick that I'm not expecting you to solve a problem or your company to solve a problem that is an issue or has been an issue since the advent of any type of digital file sharing. Obviously, that destroyed the music industry to a large extent, or the old version of the music industry. But what do you think of the copy mod transfer model in Second Life, and what are you guys doing better?
So we looked at permissions initially. I mean, we've thought a lot about permissions over the time. Everything in space is copy, but not really. It's the way we've got a licensing model. And basically what happens when you buy the item in the shop, you get a license to that item. And you can sort of, if it's a furniture item, you can use that item multiple times in your regions. What you can't do, though, is transfer the license and keep your copies. So the moment you transfer the license to the item, to another person. So if you send it through the mail system or however else you transfer it to another user, all your rights to that item disappear.
We have to add real quick that the mail system within Space is basically your transfer model. That's how you transfer inventory items, correct?
That's how we transfer things at the moment. You can also do things like you can sell items to another person through the mail system. So I could actually have sold you your avatar, and you would have had to pay me to accept the delivery, or it would go straight back to me. The model here, though, we tried to build this sort of. It's not really copy, mod, or transfer. It's sort of a hybrid of the three. And that way we can preserve the flexibility of the copy model, where you can actually sort of use one outfit multiple times, or basically make duplicates of the inventory item. But at the same time, you don't keep the ability to make a copy and then sell the copy independently. Space's model, it sort of delinks the two, so they're not completely separate missions anymore. They're sort of kind of joined together at the middle. The mod mission on its own is a separate topic, and that comes down to clothing customization. So actually, we've got a facility in here. It's currently a little bit hard to access because we've found some bugs in it, so we've pulled it straight out of the store, but you can actually go to certain regions to customize clothing items. So this clothing item I'm wearing at the moment, if you take a look in the crowd, there's a user who's got one of the default avatars on, Star Galaxy over there. Mm-hmm. You can see he's actually wearing the same t-shirt I am. The difference is I've actually dyed mine blue. So we have some in-world clothing customization tools as well. They're sort of designed to let you do decal stamping. So I don't know if anyone's played APB. They've got a fantastic clothing editor based on decal stamping. So we've looked at things like that to try and integrate. Well, we've got some more of those coming down the pipeline in the second half of this year to expand the sort of the customization options. And they also work within our models. So you can actually modify the item and then transfer that item to another. You can sell that clothing item to another player, but you can't make copies of it. So they sort of become limited edition items that have been personalized by an individual. We actually think there's a whole sort of market, if you will, for people who take other people's shirts and items and clothing that they've made, buy copies of them, and then customize them and then put them up in the auction house or whatever else we've got in here. I do think that user modification of items is a great thing to encourage. The problem has been that it's been a huge customer service load for a lot of creators. So they don't really want to encourage it because it's easy for users to break things. The difference in our model, and especially the one we're going to be building, releasing in the second half of this year, is going to be the ability to sort of revert those changes back. So no change you make is destructive. You can always sort of revert it back to factory defaults if you want to, if you've screwed it up too much. So the sort of goals is that we go beyond the permission model here. We try and sort of look at what the limitations of the permission model are and then take it a step further and see how we can actually fix the weaknesses that model has. Because it's a good model, but it's not a perfect model.
I'm just fielding some questions here on the YouTube channel. Kathy Foyle. Hi, Kathy. It's great to see you. We have to catch up. Kathy is asking, Kathy from Maya Star in Second Life, Kathy's asking, does Science Space have a derivative system like IMVU? You mentioned earlier you're also selling an IMVU. And before you answer that question, a quick 60-second anecdote. I was in Frankfurt, Germany at a VR event, and I wore my Dragster t-shirt. And this is a true story. The guy who runs the hotel, so I go out for a little evening walk. I come back. I see him smoking at the entrance. And then he says, oh, excuse me, can I talk to you for a minute? And I go like, yeah, what is this about? He says, are you affiliated with that Dragster show on YouTube, Drax Files? And I go, yeah, I'm kind of affiliated with it. Oh yeah, can you talk to my wife and tell her that Second Life is so much better than IMVU? Because I learned from your show you can actually make money in Second Life, and what she does in IMVU is just spending money. Anyway, so that is a true story. So I gave him my card and said, contact me anytime. He never contacted me, but that was the one and only time I was ever sort of recognized. I felt like Bon Jovi there for a second.
Derivative system, I think, was the question.
Yes.
So we've been looking at that for quite a while. It's on our roadmap. If you go look at our public feature roadmap, it is actually sitting on there to add a derivative system. It's actually fairly close to hitting the top of our to-do list. So we've got a sort of ordered to-do list that sometimes gets randomly reshuffled. But at least at the moment, the to-do list has a derivative system fairly close to the top. Because again, it's a really good system. And we can actually do a bit more in the derivative system to sort of protect against creator item theft and things. So we can actually sort of encourage forcing the derivation tree to be honored. all sorts of little bits and pieces we've got in our chain. So we think we should be able to do that, and actually we are going to do that, because it is a good idea, and I'm very happy to integrate good ideas into space. So if someone comes up with something that's brilliant, then you can certainly say that I'm going to be looking at it.
I want to bring in Mel real quick here because you mentioned high fidelity earlier, and one of the things that is baffling to me is that high fidelity still to this day does not have a marketplace where, well, they have a marketplace, but you can list things, but they're essentially free. And high fidelity has been around for 3 years, not publicly, but that admittingly, but it is surprising to me because Philip Rosedale, co-founder of Second Life and now heading High Fidelity, is known to, as a public speaker, to always stress the point to empower creators. And High Fidelity to this day has no way to really monetize content. And I know a handful of people personally who came in there and then left because there is no such system, and there's also no real protection to theft. Mel, what are your thoughts on that? As I guess also kind of a part-time high fidelity dweller.
I know Philip wanted, those seas out as always said that would be one of the main line income streams. He actually, despite a lot of other stuff being open source. It does mystify me a bit. Something I wonder about, is that balance of people creating content and the balance of customers. A platform can come online with lots of content and then hope they're going to get the customers to buy it, or it can come on with no content. There's nothing to buy, and it's down to creators. So it maybe they are going in hypothetically with the idea of creators initially, and having that largely sort of free marketplace between themselves, and maybe it's a step in their roadmap, as it were, to go commercial with that. There's a very similar thing here with space, I should add. I think I'm right in saying that I've detected of late, amongst, shall we say, serious creators, the idea that, we're moving from living with friends and stuff in the groups to creating offline, and where you're the sole owner, and you can literally, with a bit of, huffing and puffing, deploy anywhere. So I, for example, have objects of furniture lying around on my hard disk. I can put them into an OpenSim offline installation, or online for that matter. But then I can modify them and export them into a format that can be uploaded, brought into Unity and then uploaded here. Or it can be uploaded straight into the sandbox area that High Fidelity provides. That is very good for creators. I'm afraid when it comes to the Unity learning curve and the other 3D stuff, I'm a bit behind. Users might think I just want the studios to be in. But it certainly makes sense that, given the slick graphics we can get with Mesh, Unity builds and things, that creators would work offline. The payback on that, of course, which isn't so much the case here, because people can decorate their own rooms, and the decorating is not quite the same as building, designing. The drawback to that is in OpenSim and Second Life, a newbie, as we would call them, has been able to come in and eventually learn how to actually resolve a box on the floor, and then they'll close, and then twist it and turn it, and before you know it, before long they've learned to do all sorts of things. And when you've got offline building done by designers who really know what they're doing in advance, kind of thing, then I think you lose a bit of that immediacy, that you have in Second Life and OpenSim. So it would always be a trade-off. But I think if spaces like this can allow people, to get a house, decorate the house, and do lots of the things that people in Second Life and OpenSim do, then the problem resolves itself. People who are really interested in creating will then go off and do it. And arguably, the thing you mentioned about copyright protection and stuff like that is if you build something, design something completely offline, and then import it into a platform or multi-platforms, it is yours. There's no question that you use the in-world tools to do it and it belongs to the platform owner or anything like that. It is simply yours. You can put it in and you can take it down and take it out again. And, I know Adam's model here, for example, is, I can have a region and be busy building that in Unity and then syncing it with the creator server here to see if there's any good, which of course never is. And, but also, alternatively, I can take individual objects, say it's a city or something like one of these, and once I've got it right, I can upload the individual item rather than the whole world. And that can be in a marketplace. And as Adam will tell you, there's gold currency, which is basically the world money.
Folks listening on YouTube have mentioned that my audio is too loud. Please let me know if it's better now. I kind of modulated it back a little bit, pulled it back a little bit. And Mel, if you can increase your volume a little bit on your end, but otherwise it should be fine. Tomorrow, the edited version of this live stream will be on the podcast, so we'll have a more condensed version and kind of a slightly better sound quality. Although the sound quality should be good, I'm just a little bit too loud, but that goes with the territory. I just talk all the time, so I'm louder. Excuse me, and I'm also under the weather. But so I would like to also welcome Sun Tzu, and he probably, I don't know if he's ready to come onto the stage and join us with the discussion. I just saw his Space Creator label above his head, so I'm assuming he's a creator here in space, so I would also like to involve him in the discussion. Now, Mel added a whole bunch of interesting thoughts here, and one I want to throw to you, Adam, which is the strategy of these worlds. I think last time when you were on, we talked about High Fidelity and Sanser, the two big players. I think, in my personal opinion, VR Chat has also emerged as an important player in the VR world space. I would like to know your thoughts on their strategy, which is to court creators and how they do that. And because you guys are doing the same thing, and I guess the chicken and egg dilemma here is with these new worlds, how do you create content? How do you entice creators to spend time on your platform to create content that then entices the masses to come in because they see, hey, this is a world that has the best content? How do you do that? And in your mind, is High Fidelity doing a good job watching from the outside? Are you concerned about other worlds? A whole bunch of questions. I pile on. I love to pile on. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So there's all sorts of questions here about sort of how are we rewarding creators, how other people are doing. I guess there's all sorts of topics. So first one, we do have currency in here already. It's been live since day one. We've done a couple of cash outs now. For creators. We've got a slightly different model here that we actually skip the whole exchange market nonsense. If you're a creator here, someone buys your item with gold in the store, so gold's our paid currency, and you can optionally choose how your stuff is priced. Someone buys it with gold, they basically convert to USD the moment the purchase is made.
Is that a similar system, real quick, to jump in? Is that a similar system to Second Life? Is also tied to your credit card, and then you can take the money out with certain limitations?
No. So the system in Second Life is that you have to sell the Linden dollars to get US dollars out. Our system, we just pay you in US dollars flat. There's no selling of the gold back into the exchange. What we do is we just simply convert it to US dollars and add it to your account balance as and when the purchase is made. And once the account balance crosses over a small threshold, we'll bank transfer it to you, basically. So it's a very straightforward process. It's automatic. So we just routinely send those transfers out on a regular basis. So you don't need to sit and worry about sort of how the payment systems happen. There is a little bit of a delay with our cash outs, and there's a reason for that, and that's actually to do with money laundering. It's possible, money laundering and fraud, it's possible for someone to buy gold with a stolen credit card and then try and cash it out. So we do hang on to it for longer than the chargeback period, just to make sure that isn't the case, because we can't afford to float someone's $90,000 route through the system, as has happened to a couple of other OpenSim worlds and things. But effectively, the process we've got is substantially simpler. The other benefit of the waiting period, and this is actually one of the key reasons for it, is also to prevent piracy. So if someone uploads pirated content into the platform, gets past the review processes and all the rest of that, there's a sufficient time period to allow us to catch it before they actually profit from that piracy, which again is all about removing the incentives for pirates. So I guess looping back to our main topic, in terms of how other people are doing, I'm probably not going to be drawn into to commenting on other virtual worlds. I'll only say that if people come up with good ideas, and I think there are a few coming from the other worlds, then I'm absolutely happy to consider them being added into space. I think that it's important to sort of keep an open mind and see what people are doing well. Your final question in that group of questions was specifically about sort of attracting creators and making things interesting. Our model is we're trying to make it as easy as possible to do sophisticated content design in space. One of the things we've added very early on was actually the ability to bring in clothing from Marvelous Designer, for example, straight into space without doing any weighting or rigging. There's no LOD calculations, none of that stuff that you'd have to learn how to use Max or Maya to do. You can actually design in Marvelous Designer, import into space, use our automatic weighting and rigging tools, and get it in. You can either then apply things like cloth physics. In fact, I may swap my avatar in a moment to an avatar that's got full cloth physics on. It's one of Black Opal's items that is in the store, and it's actually great. It really does look great with the cloth physics in play. But again, it's all about making these steps easier and easier and easier, and removing as many redundant steps as we can. We've still got some work to do, because it is obviously, you do have to download Unity, you have to install Unity, which is, I know, can be a little bit of a holdback, but I probably will say in our defense, the reason Unity can be a little bit scary is because there's so many tools in the toolbox. Whereas in like other virtual worlds, you're being handed a toolbox and it's got maybe 20 or 30 tools sitting in there. When you've got a full game engine editing system like Unity, you've got a toolbox with 2,000 tools in it. And it's a little bit scary learning that there are 2,000 tools that you could potentially be using. You don't actually need to use them all to get started. You can learn the same 20 that you've already know and just and get up and running with those. But then as you progress, you can start seeing that there's, this is kind of hard. But there's a tool here that does it straight away for you. It's scary at first, but it's really not. Unity actually has got a ton of really fantastic documentation. And there is so much documentation for Unity and video tutorials and everything else out there. And we've sort of complemented that with our own. So if you take a look at our YouTube channel, you'll find that we've actually got something like, I don't know how many hours of video tutorials. I think we've got about 100 tutorials now. I don't know exactly how many. We just put up another 20 for quests just very recently, which I know blasted up the total. But there's sort of about 100 or so 5 to 15 minutes tutorials that we've done that sort of video through the whole process of doing particular things, which sort of give you the ability to sort of get started quickly. If you want to build a clothing item, there is a tutorial showing a couple of different clothing items, bringing it into space and getting it up and running. And that's really what we are about. We're trying to lower the learning curve a bit and make it easy, but the learning curve is rewarding. The content you can build in here is going to be better than any other virtual world on the market. We've not only taken Unity, but we've actually extended Unity quite a long way. We've added things like, we've integrated volumetric lighting solutions, for example. We've added a whole different set of sort of rendering components and things to make it really easy to, in space, build really fantastic looking content. I know we took you through one of my desert regions last time. You should have a go look there now.
That's right. It's amazing.
Compare and contrast, because we've updated it quite a bit in the last few months, just using some of the new features that we've got, which is all my point. So space, it's the learning curve on Unity can appear to be daunting. I'm not sure it actually is that daunting once you get started, but certainly from the outset, you can sort of get that perception. But the way you can go is just so much further. There is sort of very few limits in terms of your creative potential in here compared to all the other platforms, because we are always sitting on the latest game engine versions. We've updated Unity since we first built Space back on Unity 1.4, and that was about 2008. We did that. We have updated through many, many versions of Unity, and we've actually built our whole platform to be updated on a regular basis. So every few months, we do an upgrade to the Unity engine. We get new creative features. We get new rendering features. the whole sort of engine gets a revamp, and that means that we're always sitting on the cutting edge of game graphics facilities. So in here, for instance, you can't really see it because they're kind of blurred, but that's somewhat on purpose. But the wood floor on here has got reflections, for example. It's got real-time reflections, and as you walk around, you actually see that they are there. They are real.
Zoom in here.
That's one of the sort of the new cutting-edge AAA techniques. It's called screen-space reflections. It's a very common technique in modern game engines now, but I think that at the moment, space is the only virtual world that actually has it. And that's sort of the point, that we are always sitting on the top of these new things. So when something new comes out, we can update Unity, get advantage of a new feature, and then all of our creators suddenly get access to the work of 2,000 people that are employed by Unity Technologies and everyone who works at space. So it's sort of a collaborative effort.
Mm-hmm. Now, Adam, and I asked you this last time, what is fascinating to me is that you guys have not focused or joined the hype in, shouting around, hey, come to us because we are VR. Everything is VR. Everything goes crazy. We had a show last month that we called The Trough because people are already talking, oh, is VR in the trough of disillusionment? You see articles that talk about the lack of HMDs being sold. Then, of course, you have the counter argument, well, it just takes time, and the next generation of HMDs is coming along, and it's going to be untethered, and blah, 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 blah. Now, you guys made that decision to really focus on a virtual world that is not necessarily putting VR up front. Why is that? Where do you get the confidence that somebody like Judas Shuffle, my good friend, who is on the chat, will say, I'm not going to go into space because it's boring because I don't have hand tracking.
So why did we not get on the VR hype train? So actually, I have a Oculus right next to me. I have a HTC Vive. No, it's Vive. It's a Vive. I got told the official pronunciation recently.
Vive la France!
Right next to me as well. Vive. I have both of the major headsets in my office. I've actually drilled holes into my walls to put up the room space, so I've got a nice little 2 meter square environment, and I am testing space in there. My problem with VR is, and I said this last time we had a sort of a half an hour discussion on this, is specifically that I do not think that the technology is ready for a wide audience yet. It is great for enthusiasts. It has gotten so much better in the last year than it was a year ago, and it's so much better than it was 2 years ago, by 10 times that amount. But, and here's the magic but, it requires basically putting down $3,000 worth of money to buy a high-end computer and the equipment involved. It is not approachable for an end-user audience. There is still huge problems with motion sickness. They are getting better. There is still huge problems with the uncomfortability of the headsets. I've got one, and I thankfully don't get subjected to VR sickness, but I do get subjected to a crook neck after wearing one for 45 minutes. They're not lightweight enough. They're too expensive. There is all sorts of problems sitting with VR, and I do not think that it's a wise move for us to target VR as a first market, because I think that there is a far wider potential with things like mobile. We've actually got some experimental mobile clients you can get from us if you ask nicely.
I'm asking right now.
More potential in the web browser. I'll toss you one of our Android clients later. I've got a web browser client. That's been something we've been building because it means that people can hotlink people straight into scenes. I know there are some issues with that, but it is getting better every day. We're waiting on a lot of the browser manufacturers to sort of fix their stuff to get it working right. But it is improving every month. And we're working on the PC desktop client. These are all things that should be addressed, I think, first before we do VR. Now, that's not to say I don't think VR has potential. I think that it's actually a lot of fun. There is a lot of very cool stuff with interactivity in VR, and I've actually been adding that stuff into space in my spare time. That's sort of one of my Sunday afternoon projects, has been getting some VR support in so we can actually drive and act our avatars around. But I just don't think it's the right choice for a next generation virtual world first, because I think it's too small a market. When you look at the Steam VR stats, I know they've been posted around the place recently. There's no more than 500 concurrent VR sessions at once. This is on a platform with tens of millions of users.
That's
and
right.
Steam's concurrency can hit tens of millions of users, and we've got 500 using VR equipment. It's just not there. So if we build for VR first, we are cutting out 99.9% of the potential audience. And I think that would be a silly mistake for us to do.
We have a whole bunch of questions here on the YouTube channel. So, Mel, I hope you can hear us. Maybe somebody can IM Mel. Kathy was asking about the avatar system here. Does Sciencebase have a standard or default avatar? Again, Kathy's making the MayaStar plugin for Second Life, and has recently added a fantastic, and Kathy, please remind me of the product name, plugin that makes it possible to interact with voice commands with Maya.
So we've got both a standard avatar and and morphing. We've been adding more and more to the standard avatar. So it started out, I'll be perfectly blunt, our standard avatar a year ago was awful. Our standard avatar 6 months ago was a little bit better, but still not great. Our standard avatar in the creator viewer today is a lot better. We do need some skin creators to come in and do a better job, because we think the mesh, underlying mesh is actually pretty good. For the one we're updating to now, but we do need some work on the skin. So if any skin creators are out there and want to get in on the ground floor, there is a wide open market for you. That said, though, we do have a standard avatar. We're trying to avoid segregation of avatars for creators. Specifically, we know that's a pain point. We want creators to be able to build one clothing item and have it refit to all possible humanoid shapes. So that's what our deformer is built around. The deformer doesn't require any work on creators' part to work. So we actually do it based on a bit of math on the body shape translations, and we reapply those to the clothing systems. And that basically means that clothing that wasn't designed to use it works with it. So all of our clothing that's in our store today that was created sort of a month ago or 6 months ago or a year ago, all of that works with the body slider systems, because it's all automatically built. And so every time we add a new feature like this to our avatars, we're very keen to make sure that it works with all the legacy content. So it means that there's no effort for creators to actually take advantage of the new feature.
The first thing I thought of is you asked me earlier about hyperfidelity, and one flaw I think there is that, it took me ages to find out a way to friend somebody in the latest hyperfidelity, because I don't wear a helmet, I'm a 2D screen person, and, there is a magic key that now allows me to pretend I'm shaking their hand. But, the reliance on that tech by high fidelity, I think, is a very bad move. My personal feeling about VR tech is that it's wonderful stuff. I keep reading and posting links about engineers that use it to see deep inside engines and use virtual reality to do things, productive things that they've never been able to do before. But on the consumer front, people do not watch their 3D TVs. The quality wore off. Consumers are not going to want to sit down in front of a TV or whatever with a darn space helmet on. Better not use the word space. I don't think it's going to be a common thing. Maybe one day, if we have a pair of glasses like a visor, let's say Apple do a visor, and it literally plugs into the phone in our pocket, and we can optionally take it off like we do our headphones, then maybe something will happen there, especially with augmented reality. But I don't believe people actually want full immersion to that extent. What if something is going on visually or audio in the real world that demands your attention and you're completely locked out of it? And you need space to move around in these things. Otherwise you go tripping over cables, banging into walls. It's okay for the techies who know what they're doing, and people who demonstrate these things in big rooms where they've set it up to do it. But the average person's sitting room or the kid's bedroom, I don't think so. I mean, gamers obviously don't love it. They're people who are totally immersed in these things anyway. But as a mass consumer thing, I don't think so. I think the technology will evolve and become fantastic. But I think one of the things about, say, space, as opposed to high fidelity, but also OpenSim and other things, is the key thing is the platform itself and, to a certain extent, interoperability. You want it to be able to be used on a mobile phone, on a desktop, and maybe in a headset, or maybe on the phone with a cardboard. These are options, but I don't think it is wise for any platform to actually take the bet that consumer VR technology, and I'm talking about hardware and headsets, is going to take off, because it's not just dizziness and things like that. It will get better, but there's a price you pay every time you go into that kit. You know, and I don't think it's a natural way for humans to want to be much of the time.
Mel, these are really excellent points, and I couldn't agree more with you, especially on the issue that I think the techies or Silicon Valley is misjudging the willingness for people to show their sort of quote-unquote real emotions all the time. Right now, everybody is out there up front sort of pushing, well, look, we can scan ourselves in 3D. We can look like ourselves, like little cartoonish versions of our real-life selves, and we can transpose everything in real time. Maybe that is something that we don't even want when we interact in virtual worlds. I think that is really a key. But then again, it comes to, oh shit, there's a spider right next to me. Podcast listeners, you don't see a spider. Adam just turned into a spider. So I want to bring in.
Please, no.
I want to bring in Jesse Kenner Regalsworth. I don't know if you have voice. Give us a voice check, please, Jesse, if you can. Can you hear us, Jesse? Let's see if she can hear us. And I would like to have your take on space. Jesse's here on stage with us for the podcast audience. Okay, no response. But Jesse, talk anytime. Press the Alt key. Meanwhile, Mel, what you said, but don't you think that you put it exactly like I put it in previous weeks, that the reliance or the sort of putting it up front, the VR compatibility, especially in high fidelity, may not be a super smart move. And I have an example when I was at the Power Rangers event. Sorry, my voice is giving out. But there was a recent remake of Power Rangers with young Hollywood actors. And the actors appeared in high fidelity. And it was a live stream, basically a Q&A with the actors, front row seat, Hollywood type movie promotional tie-in thing. The actors were interviewed. They were all in avatar form. They were in high fidelity. And a lot of them didn't really know how to use their controllers, so they looked really awkward. And if you look at this on YouTube, the archived stream, and you see the comments, you get reminded of what people usually comment when you show them Second Life stuff. Because people don't understand that the cartoon people that they see on stage there in that YouTube video are actually real people. And that is an issue that Second Life still hasn't, or that kind of holds back Second Life from mass adoption, arguably, and it still hasn't been solved, even though everything has got sort of more immersive, right?
I think that's a problem. I have plenty of friends in the RL sim, so to speak, who they won't touch it. Some of them are actually just scared. I had one friend who came in and thought it's absolutely wonderful looking at all these avatars wandering around and walking around amongst them, and then suddenly she realized that they were all real people and they were trying to talk to her, and she was out there. She couldn't go, like thrust into the middle of a crowd. Now, I think those of us that do adopt this stuff, we know that, it's an advanced communication platform, what we call social virtual worlds. And, obviously we might be able to use them to do things that are sociable and productive too, hopefully. But, there are strict limitations to that, I think. I mean, we have so many ways to communicate these days that, it's, I'll often be in a virtual world. It might even be in two at once, although not active. And then there'll be things like Skype, and somebody just mentioned Slack, which I use for, our work stuff. All these are open at once, so you get periods of sort of focusing your concentration on one thing or another. A lot of people will go into OpenSim or Second Life to watch a video on the screen that they could just as easily watch on YouTube, but they like doing it simply because they can chat in text to other people watching it at the same time.
And let me just say, a lot of people are asking, about the avatar system here on the YouTube chat. We got quite a few listeners, and the interesting thing is that our friend here, Sun Tzu, has just morphed into a completely different avatar, and we have a spider here. So it goes without saying that talking about space, you have complete customizability over your avatar, but again, you have to have sort of certain skills, I suppose. For example, my avatar was made by Melio from Second Life with Mixamo at the time, now Adobe Fuse, which is a tool that anybody could use. It's really straightforward, but again, I mean, it's kind of a tool outside the world itself. So, Adam, real quick about the avatar designer. What about it? Is it the best avatar system that you have, that the world has seen?
Okay. Yeah. I would like to think so. There is still more that we're missing from our avatar customization. So I'm not going to say yes, because there is things that we're missing that need to get added. What I will say though is that our avatar system is designed to be. I mean, we've got very cool features on our avatar system. So our base avatar, with the support for things like clothing and everything. I mean, not every new virtual world has support for clothing. In fact, I think of the next-gen virtual worlds, we're the only one that actually has bothered to implement a clothing system, which is a bit. I would think that would be a high priority. But if you don't want to use it, you can sort of upload a whole FBX model with its own custom animators and everything, like the spider that I'm wearing. But on top of that, if you upload a humanoid avatar that's just a pure FBX, that's a 3D model format, then you can actually use our automatic, because of Unity, we've got a system called Mechanim that can translate animations between characters. So that granny avatar that Sun Tzu's wearing right now, that one can play all the standard space animations and gestures. It didn't need to be built for it. The skeleton is not the space skeleton. It's just a random skeleton. I don't know where it was built from, but so if you wear a jacket over a shirt, we can actually tuck the shirt into the jacket so they won't intersect with each other. It takes a second to calculate, so it won't happen immediately when your avatar loads, but it'll happen within 10 seconds. It'll tuck in. But we've got things like that. We've got automatic deletion of the skins. You don't need to worry about things like alphas. What we're missing at the moment, and these are things that we're sort of adding in the short term. So, as I said at the start of this, we're still in beta. There is things we're missing. There are things that we are adding. We have added so much in the last 6 months since we went into sort of creator beta. And we are adding tons more every month. The next things that we've got to do in avatar customization are tattoo layers for the base avatar. That's something we're missing, and we know that things like makeup and tattoo. Again, when we build this, though, what we want to do is we want to build the best feature out there. So when we did our avatar body sliders, we also added the ability to do the clothing morphs automatically. Because again, that if you build these virtual worlds and you build those features, it would be good to try and fix a lot of the holes that have existed in virtual worlds in the past, in how those things are implemented. So every time we build a feature, we try and look at it and say, okay, well, how can we make this feature better? And then we go ahead and build that. So tattoo layers and makeup layers, things like that, they're next on our hit list for our avatars for customization. But when we do them, we're going to do them in a fantastic way that everyone goes, wow, that's brilliant. Mm-hmm. And then we set the standard, and that's sort of the way we want to build our world.
Susan Jewell is joining us right now. Susan Resistance, in Second Life, a musician. Do you have anything in store for musicians? Why should a musician come to space? A successful Second Life musician.
You are going.
Okay, can I just say hello to Jewel? I haven't seen her for ages. Hi, Jewel.
We're crossing the lines between 2D and 3D.
So cool things for musicians. Apart from the out of the box, we do have support for things like streaming radio, and again, that's something that not everyone else has implemented yet, but we've had it in for a couple of weeks or a couple of months now. So apart from streaming music, we've also got things like built-in music visualizers. So you can build lights and animations and all sorts of things that react to music. And I'd actually love to use this as an invitation. We have got a creators ball, which is not just limited to creators, it's everyone's welcome. In fact, we'd love to see as many people as possible. We've got a brand new live music venue we've just put together. It's called, I think it's Guitar Hella. We'll put some announcements around. So if you follow us on Facebook or you follow us on Twitter or anywhere else for space, usually just search for Sign Space or SignWave Space. We'll be posting some announcements. We'd love to get some people to join us because we're actually going to show off a lot of those features. We have things like lip sync support. It's a little bit messy at the moment to get in, but again, we'll try and clean that up to make it easier for musicians to come. There's actually a great video on our YouTube channel. If you look up Sine Wave Entertainment on YouTube, you can find us there. I've got a singer that sings along to a song, and you can sort of see the mouth go along with it, and that's actually built from a streaming music component. So there's all sorts of little bits and pieces. Again, we don't want to leave any group behind. We really want to improve virtual worlds across the board. So we've done some work already on making it better to build live music venues. One of the other things we've got is higher concurrencies in regions. We have an avatar rendering system that can maintain 30 plus frames a second when there is more than a couple of hundred avatars in a region. I think we did a test of that last time. When we first chatted on our last call, I think we were walking through a region with, I think at the time it had about 500 avatars, 500 or 600 avatars, I can't remember. Kept pushing it higher and higher and higher. It got to about 1,200, and now it has broken at 1,200. But it really was a really impressive number of avatars to put on screen and still get, I think we're getting about 10 frames a second at 1,200, but it was really lagging when you first entered the region. It would lag like crazy for about 15 minutes, but after that point, it was fine.
But I just mentioned something. That Adam actually didn't really say, and that is, I've forgotten the word. In terms of scaling, if you have like a really large music event, which you did ask about music, then they can actually set it up so a stage exists concurrently in different regions, so you can have almost unlimited audience, because there'll be separate parcels and audiences, but the stage can be shared. I think that was right, haven't I?
Yeah, we've got the sharding facility. So when you've got hundreds of or thousands or tens of thousands of visitors to a live music, we can actually copy the region instantly. So as soon as it crosses over the maximum number of people allowed in the region, it'll shard off and create another copy straight away, and the new guests will begin sort of rolling through that door. And that means that we can go, we can render an obscene number of avatars in a single space, but it's still not equivalent to a rock concert. We still can't get 50,000 avatars in one scene, but don't worry, we are trying. We would love to get to that point down the road, but I think that's sort of a 10, 15-year project to get that kind of concurrency up. But, in the short term, we can let you host a region across multiple regions. Host a show across multiple regions that are exactly the same as each other, and it automatically happens. You don't need to do any work. It just sort of splits off the region as soon as the first one gets full.
It is really amazing. We're going to wrap it up. Next time, I want to see all 192 spots here in this auditorium filled.
Yes, so, please.
Guys, if you don't show up, I know where you live. And I will come and get you and drag you into the audience. But this was absolutely awesome. Chemi Drake on the chat, and I didn't on the YouTube chat. I haven't followed it 100%, but he was chiming in a little bit with, he's missing prims, and we didn't really get to one of sort of the things that I find very important. Is the ability for the amateurs to get going right away. You kept mentioning that Unity is, when you put your mind to it and you kind of sort of block out all the complexities and focus in. But Second Life had this very particular, amazing ability to level the playing field because it's so easy to get started.
Yeah, so we've been trying to actually level that playing field a bit more as well. So we added in-world build tools about 2 months back. If everyone who's got a account in Space, congratulations, you've got a free region. We actually give a free sort of sim equivalent to every single user automatically. Just click the home button at the bottom, and that'll take you to your home screen where you can create a region for yourself. Those regions all have in-world build tools attached to them, so you can buy furniture through the marketplace and resize, scale, and move the stuff around. There is more work that we want to do in exposing more properties and things that can be edited in-world. It is an active project for us, because our in-world tools are kind of modeled a little bit after Unity. So our goal with those is that what we actually want to do is we want to start you off slow. You can go with the in-world build tools and sort of get started there. And then as you learn those in-world build tools, the more advanced features on those build tools mimic sort of Unity, and you're learning Unity at the same time. So when you get to the point where you hit all the limitations, you can actually go, I actually do know how to use at least a bit of Unity. Really happy to launch the new build tools. Again, there's another open call. I've got all sorts of open calls I have one for skin creators. Who are skin creator, I remind you, I really do want some more.
Skin creators, are you listening?
I'd really be happy to. Yep, but also furniture creators, because we did just launch this tool, and the furniture library's got a bit in it. We've got a couple, think about a bit over 100 items in there now, but it's not enough. We really want to get a lot more in there. So if you've got furniture you've already made, it's actually not very hard to import that stuff in. And if you want to start making regions that are designed for user editing, I mean, we could have a whole podcast on the in-world build tools, because there's a lot of features in there. We sort of tried to build a guided system that's sort of halfway between, say, Second Life and The Sims, and also a bit of like the Fallout 4 settlement system. We're sort of taking bits and pieces from here and there to try and make something that's easy to use, because my background is in Second Life. I used to run the Azure Islands, and I know for a fact that there's a lot of people out there who, even those in-world tools are confusing and whatnot. So we're actually trying to sort of get the barrier to entry as low as we possibly can to try and get as many people using those things as possible. But for those in-world build tools to work really well, it'd be great if we could get more creators building sort of the prefab components. We've got things like the ability to snap items together. So if you build a modular wall set, you can actually set them up using something called snap nodes, and those snap nodes will automatically guide into each other when people get them close. So it'll automatically align things together, like just snap and join together. I mean, there's all sorts of little features we've got like that in our in-world build tools that we're hoping sort of makes it easier and more accessible for people to not only build in-world, but also build well in-world. So you're not just messing around with prims and not knowing exactly what you're doing and getting a bit of a mess as a result. Our tools are sort of trying to be a little bit more intelligent, so that we can see what you're trying to do and then actually sort of help you with the last bit, so it does look the way you're thinking in your head, but it's not quite coming out on the screen.
All right. So Space is welcoming creators as well as people like myself who can't even build a three-legged stool. And we all can learn and have fun together. And you guys are not jumping on the VR hype train yet, which may already actually be stuck in the trough of disillusionment, as far as I can tell, reader of tech blogs. Adam, this was an absolute pleasure. Mel, it was awesome to reconnect with you here live on stage. Son is obviously a PE teacher. Son, you wanna have the last word? We haven't heard from you because you're biased, or you don't want to. Say anything. That is completely fine. Jessica Wrigglesworth also was here.
I'm not sure Son has voice.
Okay. Right. We should see that here. Thank you, audience. Again, Jessica, also a voice issue. Rocky, thanks for coming. And Justin was here earlier with his awesome design skills for the podcast. This edited version of this stream will come out Saturday around 8 a.m. Second Life time. SLT. Sorry, I'm still working in SLT. I don't know what space time it is. And it will be on the podcast. Please subscribe to the podcast on Stitcher. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. Leave us a review. And go to the sponsors of the show. Become a sponsor. Become a voluntary subscriber to the show. We take Linden dollars. Maybe we should take Space Gold. We soon will be taking Sansar dollars. Yes. You can pay us in Space Gold. And next week we'll be talking about Sansar a little bit. Next week is a special show live from SL14B, Second Life's 14th birthday party. The official birthday of Second Life is June 23rd. We will be doing a live show with special guests on the 24th. I actually forget what stage it is, but I'll be in touch, and I think it's 11 a.m. SLT, but don't quote me on it. You know where to find us. And Joyce Bettencourt in the YouTube chat just said we should take Bitcoins. We also need to take Globits. And again, I'm linking on the blog to the show with Christopher Colosi, who used to run the Lindex at Linden Lab and who is now fronting Globit.com, which is a very interesting concept. I wish him all the best. He'll be back on the show as well. So thank you all, and this is the show. Thank you so much for watching, listening, and being here on stage with the avatar. And I just can't find the... Sorry, Mel. Stop me, or I will never stop.
I was just saying. My pleasure, Drax, is all I was going to say.
that's the cue for me to shut my mouth. Thank you and goodbye.
The Drax Files Radio Hour with Jo Yardley is a weekly production of Basic Drax Entertainment. The show is supported by Time Portal, SL Artist, Warbug, Bay City You Know for Kids, 01 Heavy Industries Corporation, Extraordinary, Ionic, Maven Homes, Giza Creations, Botanical, Strawberry Sing, Abranimations, Eros Avatars, Caravel Design, The Cube Republic, What Next, Landscapes Unlimited, Fallen Gods Incorporated, and Death Row Designs. Thumbnail by Justin Esparza. Contact the show via Skype, Drax Files, Avatar Drax Files, or email radio@draxfiles.com.